105.9 Academy FM.
The sound of Folkestone.
Hi, we're Ross and Ilea, and over the next half hour, you'll be listening to an interview with a forensic scientist. We're both interested in forensics, and when we were given the opportunity, we jumped in the car and went to meet Trevor at his lab in Canterbury College.
We're here in Canterbury College with Trevor Body, who's going to show us around one of the forensic labs.
Well, at the moment we're standing in one of the laboratories that's used for biology. And over here I've got some forensic samples that some of the students have actually produced in some of their practicals. We do lots of practicals here at Canterbury College relating to forensic science. It's part of the BTEC course that we actually run here. So students do get lots of hands-on experience of using forensic science to help them understand really what forensic science is all about. So over here, for example, we have footwear casts that some of the students have produced themselves. So what would happen if a criminal stood in some mud at a crime scene, then the crime scene investigator would come along and they would use a casting process for casting the footwear mark in the soil, letting that cast set, and then that allows them then to actually take the cast away and for a forensic scientist to actually look at the detail in the footwear mark.
So here we have a casting of someone's shoe print. It's very precise in how it's actually casted around there.
The pad is basically the bottom of the shoe, or trainer, or whatever, and it's actually well printed out, so you can see all the details very well and finely.
The size of the foot would sort of represent an adult's shoe, because it's relatively large.
That's one thing with footwear marks, it's actually difficult to tell whether the person who's made that is male or female.
Trevor used to be a policeman, but is now a teacher. I want to know what made him interested in forensics.
Well, forensic science involves chemistry, physics and biology, so I really like the idea that you're using all science to help investigate crimes. The variety of using science is very interesting.
Moving on to the next thing, what else could you show us?
Well, this is an item that one of the practicals that we do here at the Canterbury College, and it is packaged up as an exhibit, for example. So to have an exhibit label on there, and it explains to the student where this item has been taken in relation to a crime scene. And if we look at the item, it is a bed sheet that has some red staining on the surface here. And what the students would be doing would be looking at the bed sheet, identifying the red staining, for example, and doing a presumptive test on that red stain. If you were a crime scene investigator or a forensic scientist, this is exactly the technique that they would use, whether it was actually at the crime scene or in a laboratory. So if it does react positive, then what they would do is then submit that item for the next process, which would be the actual extraction of the DNA from the red stain to produce a DNA profile.
With the stain actually obviously being dried into the fabric, how would you actually take the DNA from that?
The forensic scientist would actually cut out the red stain, and then they would do a process of adding other chemicals to that stain with a view to extracting the cells from the DNA and then using the DNA processing to actually produce the profile.
If there is just one spot of blood and you test it, have you wrecked the sample?
Yeah, the scientist or the crime scene investigator must be very careful not to use all of the sample. So if there are very, very tiny samples, they might actually decide not to use this test because you will use a certain amount of the red stain as a process within the test. So if it is quite a large stain, then you can use a very small amount of that stain. But again, if it is a very, very tiny amount, then what you don't want to do is to actually lose that evidence. But if you are a forensic scientist and you do this process, then you would actually save the filter paper as well, because there might be cells that you've actually taken from the bed sheet and it's actually on the filter paper, so you would actually keep that as an exhibit as well.
If you've only just tuned in, this is Ross and Ilea, and we're talking to Trevor Body, a forensic scientist, and I wanted to ask him what he finds most interesting about forensics.
I really enjoy the fingerprint side of forensic science, and it's a process that is used at all crime scenes in trying to identify where fingerprints are, for example. Fingerprints, you don't often see them initially. It's using science again, using various different techniques to actually locate fingerprints and recovering So you might be using fingerprint powders, you might be using chemicals, but you've also got to use different techniques to actually recover them. So you're using different lifting tapes and different photographic techniques.
What do you find the most challenging in this profession?
I would probably say actually going to court to give evidence about forensic science is probably the most challenging aspect, because then your evidence potentially might put somebody behind bars at the end of the day. So if it's a very serious offence like murder, then you have to get your evidence right. Otherwise, again, if that person is innocent, then you're hoping that system, it's not just proving that somebody is guilty, it's actually proving somebody is innocent as well.
Being a fingerprint expert, would you know if people would leave fingerprints in odd places?
When you actually examine a crime scene for fingerprints, you're looking at quite a lot of areas. So if a window has been smashed or a door has been kicked in, for example, you'd possibly start looking in those areas. Burglars, for example, might touch lots of surfaces inside a house, opening cupboards and doors, and even touching strange things like fruit, for example, can actually reveal fingerprints as well. So it's not just the common areas in a house, it's some of the unusual ones as well. For example, if they are hungry, then they might start looking for food as well. So yeah, you've really got to look around a crime scene and not just cover the obvious areas, but some of the unusual ones as well.
This is 105.9 Academy FM, where Ali and Ross are interviewing forensic scientist Trevor Body, because I want to know what to look for first in a crime scene.
When you actually tend a crime scene, you're evaluating the whole crime scene, so you're having a look around the whole crime scene and looking to see if there's any dangers in there, for example. So there could be knives, there could be guns, there could be blood at the crime scene, which again could be quite harmful to you or to other people. So when you actually go into a crime scene, you have a good look around first, make sure the area is safe. Then when you start looking or examining the scene, there might be some evidence there that you actually need to collect before you actually start doing too much at the crime scene, because you actually might lose some forensic evidence. So generally in your training, you will be trained to look for specific evidence that you need to recover first. For example, footwear marks at windows. If the window has been smashed and it's raining, then you might decide that that's a priority to actually recover that before you start looking further in the house for fingerprints or for blood.
What kind of evidence would you look for?
Well, mainly with most crime scenes, a crime scene investigator or a scene crime officer will be looking for fingerprints, they will be looking for blood, which can produce DNA profiles of the suspect. But again, they might be looking for footwear marks, they might be looking for fibres, so your clothing may deposit fibres at the crime scene, and there could be other aspects as well. If, for example, if a gun has been fired at a crime scene, then potentially that gun will leave trace evidence as well, and it will leave potential bullets as well that the forensic expert can recover. So that it really depends on the crime scene as to what's actually happened, as to how much forensic evidence you actually need to look for.
In a crime scene, how difficult would it be to locate DNA?
Well, with DNA, there are quite a few sources of DNA that a criminal might leave behind at a crime scene. The most obvious one is blood. So if you do see any red staining at a crime scene, then again you would be looking at using a presumptive test to actually identify whether that red stain could be blood. If it is a positive stain, then you will recover that stain and you will be looking at submitting that for DNA profiling, for example.
With everyone's DNA being different, is it easier to identify people based on their DNA?
The technology used now for processing DNA is very, very sensitive. So the DNA technology has assisted crime scene investigators in identifying suspects who may have committed that crime. The only problem now is that because these techniques are so sensitive, you can actually process low copy number, for example, which is a very, very tiny amount of DNA. So it could be down to a single cell that a criminal has left behind. So as a crime scene investigator, you wouldn't actually see that at the crime scene. What you would do is be looking at areas at that crime scene where potentially you might do a swab of a surface, and then you would submit that to a forensic scientist who would do the actual processing. So it could be that with science and technology improving day by day, that forensic scientists can use that and produce some very detailed DNA profiles that will help the police detect crimes.